I'm guessing as children, many of your mothers sang lullabies to you when you were upset or maybe towards bedtime. And I'm also guessing that when you get a little older, you'll probably want to have children of your own, and you'll want to sing the same lullabies to them when they're upset or towards their bedtime. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit of information to persuade you about why listening to classical music is very crucial for a child to help their temperament, their brain development, and their learning skills. I have grown up my whole life with classical music all around me. I play classical music on the piano, and I listen to classical music almost every day. And I have found that things just come easier to me, like learning. I love to go to school, and I love to learn. Whereas some of my friends are not as much into the whole school thing. They don't like to be there. Today I'm going to provide you with just a little information to persuade you about why classical music is beneficial for a child to improve their temperament, their brain development, and their learning skills. Now let's begin with how classical music soothes a baby. Have you ever noticed that when a baby gets frustrated and upset and angry, they just scream and cry? But then when you see a mother that sings to her baby, it almost relaxes and calms it, and almost immediately it quiets. This might be because those lullabies that she sings are derived from major classical compositions. Dr. Susan Ludington Ho reports in her book, How to Have a Smarter Baby, that infants respond positively to classical music. The variations, the tempo, the style, and the dynamics all immensely soothe that baby. You can also tell when a baby really likes the classical music because they'll quiet, they'll open their eyes wide, and they'll turn their head towards the sound of the source of the sound. In the book Baby Teacher by Rebecca Shores, we learn about a study that was conducted in 1996 by Hajime Fuki. His study concluded that when students listen to classical music, their testosterone levels in both male and female greatly decreased. Now, testosterone is linked with aggression. So it's almost saying that when you play classical music for a child, their anger or their aggressiveness will almost go away. So it's a natural soothing for almost anyone. There are also medical-based soothing techniques that go along with classical music. In an article published in the Harvard Gazette written by William Cromie, we learn that when you're listening to classical music, the heart does more oxygenation. Cromie also writes in his article that classical music decreases blood pressure. Now let's examine how classical music can help to develop a child's creativity or their imagination and even their communication skills. From my own knowledge, whenever I listen to a classical composition, I can almost see the scene play out in my head. Either a bloody fight scene or a tender romantic moment. Don Campbell writes in his book, The Mozart Effect, that when you implement classical music early into a child's life, that you can greatly enhance their emotions and their expressions and even their creativity. Campbell also states that classical music helps a child to build their own self-identity. Rebecca Shores writes in her book, Baby Teacher, that what a baby hears can rewire its brain to improve language skills and even other skills. Shores also states that it is very crucial to provide classical music early in a child's life. She states that even in the womb, it's a great resource to do. Now that you have a little bit of understanding about how classical music can affect the temperament of a child and kind of how it helps to develop creativity, let's talk a little bit about how it helps to develop intellect. Linda Law is a professional pianist and has a degree in music education. She uses many techniques that include classical music in her teaching. She has found that the children respond positively to this classical music. She told me that it helps the children to remember what they are learning and to keep that information until a later date. Don Campbell writes in his book, The Mozart Effect, that classical music helps to elevate mathematics, reading, writing, and even other academic skills. It also helps to open up the ability to retain information and to memorize like that. I know it may not be a scientific study, but before I began taking piano lessons, I was reading at about an average level for first graders. When I began to take piano lessons my second grade year, my reading level shot through the roof. I was reading at least 3 grade levels above the second grade level. And I also found that when I play the piano, I can memorize stuff just in the blink of an eye. It's pretty crazy. Now, if you guys still don't believe that classical music has a huge effect on the children's lives, then let me explain to you a study done in the 1920s called the Bolton Project. Peter Perra was an orchestral conductor, and he proposed the theory that classical music increases intellect. He wanted to prove this theory and kind of see if it actually worked. So he went to a impoverished school where the grades were low and there was not much hope for these kids. And instead of bringing them to the orchestra, he brought the orchestra to them. He talked to the principal and the teachers, and they devised a plan to play music throughout the school and to incorporate that classical music into the daily studies of the children. By doing this, they found crazy results. If you look over here to this diagram, you see 2 red bars. Those are the students that took the standardized state test and scored 40%. That means 40% of them were at their grade level or above. That's a pretty low number. But those are the students who didn't have this classical integration while they were there. If you look at the black, you can see that it's almost over twice the scores of the previous students. These are the students that had 3 years of classical music integration. They scored in the 89th percentile in math and the 85th percentile in reading. That's double the scores of the previous year. Now, as you can tell, there's a definite link between classical music and intellect. And in conclusion, the classical music helps the temperament of the child by soothing and calming, helps their creativity to flourish and go crazy, and also helps their reading, writing, and arithmetic skills. Now, I have one question for you guys. Why wouldn't you want to incorporate classical music into your child's life and give them the very best possible? Thank you.